Twin flames and the spiritual journey. The classic spiritual journey can come to expression in a whole number of traditions. It is in fact an organic and natural thing to occur for anyone that has an interest in it and moves through it genuinely, meaning that it does not even need a tradition to occur, just like a seed will come out anyway, whether you cultivate it in a certain tradition or not. So that's how I want to talk about twin flames and the spiritual journey today starts. I think that there are so many spiritual traditions, and I actually include also religious traditions, and I also include nature religion traditions, if you want to call it that, or family traditions. It doesn't matter. They are all, I know that they are different categories in so many ways, and at the same time it doesn't matter because they're all actually, when you look from the inside out, designed to facilitate a true spiritual journey. Whether they do that or not is really another discussion. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do, but it also depends on the person that goes through it. Maybe the person can go through that tradition while doing the actual spiritual journey because they do it. And many other peoples can go through the same tradition and not doing an actual spiritual journey. They just do the outer part of it, the outer actions of it, for instance, but they're not going through an actual spiritual journey. But when you allow yourself to be in a genuine spiritual quest, go through transformations, arrive at new places, transform even more, even on that next level, go to a new place, etc., etc., and this genuinely occurs to you with results in your mind, your body, your emotional field, all of that. Because the spiritual is the source layer of the mind, the body, and the emotional field. So these will change from doing the spiritual journey. When you go through that genuinely, then you go through it. Just like a seed that falls on the ground somewhere, and it's just natural that that seed wants to develop, transform, and become a sprout of some sort, and then get flowers of some sort, and then from that flowers come fruits of some sort. And if you wait long enough and the conditions are okay enough, there's a little bit of sunshine and a little bit of rain, that seed will become what it is destined to become. Well, that seed is of course us, and I mean that on the spiritual level. So we are a spiritual seed. That may be an invisible seed, but it's nevertheless incomparable process. Okay, so you go through the transition, and that is the spiritual journey. And this spiritual journey has existed over eons of time. And it can be difficult to sort of find that journey, and that's why we have teachers. And teachers also make that journey more accessible. They spur you on, they speed you up. They point you in directions like maybe you need to look at the left or at the right, because then you get more information that you need right now to make your next steps to the next transformation part for you. So that's how I would see the classic spiritual journey without any tradition. But in practice, most of the time, I think, because we're human and we are cultured. Everyone, even the uncultured, are cultured because that is their culture, so to speak. I think we all go through the spiritual journey with a certain tradition. So that is like the form element of it. And the teacher, the tradition, maybe the doctrine or the scriptures, the symbols, the metaphors, the line of teachers. These can all form part of that form element of the spiritual journey. And that's actually normal to occur. Yeah, it totally is. I know of a twin flame teacher that uses Zen teachings. Well, that Zen is like a genuine, traditional spiritual a journey form that there is. And whether twin flames are applicable inside of that, I think that we get back to that sort of thing in a minute. Because maybe it is even so that, although this is an example and a real life example, maybe it is even so that twin flames are something else and they sort of call for a new tradition or a different tradition, a different form element together with the organic natural journey. But let's withhold that answer a little bit and get back to that later on in this video. I think we're now ready for the next little bit. It goes from where you are to a fully conscious and enlightened you. Somewhere on that journey, you will come to see the truth of your entire creation that you are designed as. Often, the twin flame element comes towards the end of it, and sometimes this then still remains to be an undervalued and hardly or not lived reality as a relationship. That's true. You always start the spiritual journey where you are, maybe traumatized, maybe unconscious, maybe believing yourself to be a pretty good ego. All kinds of things can be going on. And then you're going on the journey, and yes, a full enlightenment does exist. Absolutely. On that traditional journey, you will see that, and you will also see that in the accounts of many mystics and sages and teachers and students, spiritual students, that have gone that entirety of a traditional journey, spiritual journey. In the accounts of these people, when you read their books, you will often see that they will meet their true twin flame along the way, but most often more along the end or after having finished the spiritual journey. That they get a glimpse of who they are, get to see them. Maybe they get to have them closer in their life as well. But it's really not always that it really results in a relationship, how we think about a relationship at a daily life kind of level, like a marriage, like living together, like, doing life together in one household, that kind of stuff. And it is not to say that it's not possible, but this is what you often see. And it is sometimes also undervalued and hardly or not lived as reality. I had a true spiritual teacher, and he does not talk about the true twin flame. He got into that later stage of the spiritual journey, and that's when actually his group, his school, that later also started to live, not all of them, some of them in the same area, because that was beneficial for their journeys at that moment. He started to be bumped into that further along the line kind of journey in pretty much the other reality already, living on the earth, in the flesh, here and now, but essentially fully surrendered to the light. And in that part of his journey, he became the true teacher. This was something that was inescapable now, not only a career choice, which was earlier on for some time, but this really became an inescapable teachership. And in that new development, his true twin flame came to him, got close, stayed close, became his student, became sort of a co-creator in that development of the school. This all happened, but there was not... They genuinely got very intimate in the heart and in the daily life relating, but it did not result in a relationship how we think of love relationships. And that is also not where they are going. They also don't speak about this in the same way, about twin flames, and about the idea that you can relate on all levels. Teacher, student, best friend, lovers, life partners, mission partners, business partners, all in one daily life, lived as one. So, well, let's leave the question open for now, if that's a more further development that they're not yet, or it's another interpretation of the same thing. Who knows? Let's leave that open for now, but I think that's a good example of seeing that this is not lived in that kind of way, but it does come close anyway, because it almost can't not happen, because you are genuinely on that further along the line part of your journey. You've pretty much arrived, or you have arrived. It's a phenomenon, the twin flame, that you can't stop in that sense. Even though, again, in the now, where we're now, around 2023, and some decades around it, let's say, it is becoming changed, that it is more normal to want that, and also more able to do that, while at the same time, the idea of twin flames is just a reality of your soul architecture that has been around forever before, like eons. Because it is the architecture of your soul, and that was already so for you all this time. And for everyone all this time. It's not that suddenly human beings are something else since 1546 or something, in the Middle Ages. No. No. That human being, the soul of the human being is the soul of the human being is the soul of the human being. So that's, that was always already so. And that was also known in some mythologies and some realities and some exemplary but also very solitary occurrences of teachers, people that had gone the journey, the spiritual journey, genuinely. It did occur sometimes, but it was not a true teaching yet. And it was not that many people knew that and felt that in their heart and desired that, and it was not like the norm yet. And it was more like an extraordinary thing that was not even really talked about. You also had teachers that worked with their true twin flame as their student, and I already said that my teacher did that. He's male, by the way, with his female twin flame. And for me, in a past life, that was actually the other way around. I was the teacher and he was my student. So this is not, this is also not a sexist thing or something that's, or an unemancipated thing. That's really not what plays out in this matter. It can go both ways. In this period we're talking about, relatively, where it is not occurring very much at all, but then when you see it, you can see it both ways. So it's not that is necessarily sexist or something. I think things like sexist and feminism and whatnot are very good topics, but they play on another level in general, more on the social, societal level. And that is in a sort of way distinctive of the true spiritual journey kind of a level. And they play at the same time, of course, but we're now talking on that spiritual journey level for this occasion. But it was, I guess, still worth to be mentioned here for a little bit. Maybe I could make a presentation once about so many teachers and how that occurred for them. Who knows? I think I gathered enough experience to be able to do that, but I think that's also another thing that we will be doing on another occasion in the future, maybe. That does not need to be so anymore. At the same time, there are also loads more people at this time that feel called to be with the twin flame right now. When you feel it, become aware of it, wherever they are on their spiritual journey. Twin flames not coming together at the very end of a certain development on the journey, but early on, and spurring each other's journey on through being in an intimate connection with one another is a new choice that is now also supported by the leading edge of creation. That is true. There has been a change recently. In a sense, you could say that it was a gradual change. You know, from the 60s and 70s on, there was a certain movement that brought some new agey ideas with twin flames. That was also still somewhat distorted. In the 90s and early 2000s, you saw that popped up in relatively more neutral places here and there, and it was still a progression of where are we going with this idea and this information, more on the broad spectrum for everyone, more reachable for more and more people that really feel that on the daily life, that this is something that they desire, that they long for, that they intuitively know that this is so for them, even though it was already so for everyone all the time in the entire history. But do you feel it? Do you sense it? Is it ready? Are the people ready to sense it on a daily level to an enough degree so that they also want to live like that and want to pursue that feeling that they feel? So that is relatively new. It is true that since the 1980s, there has been a new vibe coming in of the Christed level, which is just the ascended level. And that has been coming into bloom more and more already indeed. So I think that is why in the early 2000s you saw that this element of the twin flame began to occur in societies, online, in subcultures perhaps, or isolated places, isolated light workers in a sense. And then you saw in the beginning of the 2010s that this really came into a quickening, and more people began to talk about it. And then from that pool of that arose more of a sense of what it truly is, not only what people talk about and guesswork and estimations of what it is all about, but like a true distilled kind of idea. Oh, but this is exactly what it is. And that was arising in the 2010s, from the 2010s on, slowly, and we're now in 2023 already, and this is really coming to bloom for a fresh few people, and this can grow from there. We did arrive at a place where it has become true in that new layer, like where it is reachable for, let's say, normal people. And also in the area of that has been a distillation of what are true helpful teachings to make that come true and what not. And that is just a beautiful time right now to have that. So now, this means that now you can do the spiritual journey in whatever tradition, how I talked about that, but you don't necessarily need to wait until that journey has been completed, and then you will meet them anyway, because it's unavoidable, because that is just what happens, just like that seed that becomes a fruit in the end. It's unavoidable. It has that information inside of itself, and there it is. So it's not only an unavoidable thing at the end of the journey, but right now what is happening in this new movement is that you can be with the twin flame relatively early on in the journey, and that idea is more approachable, is doable, has the right teachings and tools around it now, and is also more reachable for more people. And more people feel called to do this earlier on in their journey. Which doesn't mean that many people think that they're on a spiritual journey and they're doing it with their twin flame, but it's actually not their twin flame, and they may not realize that. That's what happens a lot as well. That's why teachers are very handy. So, yeah. So that's where we are right now, at the development of how you can stand in spiritual journeys relative to the leading edge of creation, where we're going with all of us, human beings, and especially, the spiritual teachers that are in tune with the leading edge of that, like the new integrations that came there. Yeah. So you can now make the choice to come together with your true twin flame in an earlier stage of your spiritual journey, and do that together. Now together, spurring each other on, helping each other, connect all the time, make each other aware just by even being there, not even by saying anything, but by whatever happens between you in your relating, breaking through inner boundaries to divine love by that relating from a very early stage in the spiritual journey on, and then on and on and on, having that spiritual journey also be sort of quickened by it, and also having companionship in that very deeply intimate and even divine way while doing that journey. Even having a teacher-student relationship from within coming out is not to say that you might not be helped by an actual outside twin flame teacher. You very much will, I will say. Especially when you want to come into this situation. But when you're in it, you also have from within this spiritual teacher-student relationship. That's beautiful. So you're going that journey now together, and you have companionship there, and you arrive together because you make the same choices. You arrive together there. By the way, you can also see that in history and with like famous people or famous holy people. There you can also sometimes see that one will be like the Pope and the other will be a very, very, very famous nun somewhere else on the planet. So they've chosen the same thing, and they reach their spiritual grade or level of enlightenment at the same time within their tradition that may be called the Pope and a nun. And that's where you see that twin flames do this together, even when they are still sort of not living it in that relationship, love relationship, marriage sense that we talked about earlier. So this is what you also see a lot as examples of how that can be, that people are with their twin flame on the same level. So, but now you will be with your twin flame in that sacred marriage, in that daily life, in that love relationship, both doing the journey, both being on the same level, because you always are, because you're one at the core, and that's what twin flames are, whether you are against that or not, whether you believe that or not. So that's just another tidbit about twin flames that I can throw in there, sort of. You're going it now together, and then you arrive together at your perfection and in your golden light together at the end of the spiritual journey. So that is some sort of another new kind of way that starts to integrate with that traditional spiritual journey, but it's also an addition of it. And it's sort of both, and it's sort of woven together. And that is what makes it so that maybe we need a new tradition to be able to teach this one, a new energy work to be able to heal this one. Not the energy work that already existed, but a new one, a new tradition. Given the idea that the process is here anyway, the option is already opened up for you much more, but there is a form element of the journey often, what I hopefully have explained understandably earlier. So this one can also have a form aspect, and that would mean a new culture, a new tradition, a new form element of this specific journey that comes forward as an option for you at this time. There has been a change in what is possible relatively recently. This has caused for the traditional spiritual journey, in whichever tradition expressed, to become updated, but only by those teachers that have this new ascension layer included and integrated into the consciousness they spread out. And importantly, not when they are only talking about the spiritual idea that twin flames are newly in the limelight, and also not when they teach a traditional journey only. Yeah, I think that we pretty much talked about this. It has changed. There is a new thing going on. This traditional journey is still important, and I'm actually fully aware of what that is, and I'm able to teach it from multiple adjacent traditions on. And I myself also have been building a new tradition that stands central as a new phenomenon, a new culture. And we're still rolling that out right now. Because it is not only that traditional journey from which I'm also able to teach, for instance, myself. I can teach from Indian yogic traditions. I can teach from Christian traditions as well. Two main parts that just come to mind first when I think about it. But in fact, I stand for a divine feminine kind of energy work that works on the new tradition where the twin flame is integrated in the traditional spiritual journey, which makes it a different something. And of that different something, I'm a teacher of more of the energy work kind of divine feminine feeling like thing that expresses that. It's a very magical thing. So I think that also explains why there are new things needed, why there are specific teachers needed, why there are relatively little places where that currently happens to the full extent. And that is not to say that some people have success with parts of traditions that they take from traditional spiritual journeys, and that can feel successful because when they are applied correctly, they can truly help you, of course. It's not that those traditions are now totally invalid, but when you see that the leading edge of creation in what is possible in the spiritual journey has been placed much further and differently now, including another field, and that field of the twin flame is now integrating and playing into that spiritual traditional journey and making how that experience is experienced different and how that needs to be taught different, you can at the same time see that while traditional spiritual journey tools and ideas can absolutely still be helpful, they're actually connected to the idea of you and your twin flame only connecting when you have done the full spiritual journey in the harmonious way and with the true twin flame, which are two elements that are always needed for what you really want with the twin flame. You need the true twin flame and you want the harmonious vibration. So they are designed to have you together with your twin flame only after the entire spiritual journey is over, and not necessarily giving you the tools to then even be with them in a correct, harmonious way with the true twin flame. But that these traditional tools from traditional cultures will help you is for sure. Absolutely. So they're not invalid. Well, I think now I'm starting to talk in a loop. I hope this element was clear enough for you. So again, I think this was again a loop, but here we are. That is why we need a new tradition starting to form and roll out for those peoples in these generations right now that have that desire for the true twin flame, be with them in this new level of possibility of being with them in this intimate, sacred marriage on the daily life level. Yeah. And the good news is that that is here. You've actually reached it. So I'm happy for you. Keep following us. And I think this was, good for this video. And I want to point you towards a video in which I talk more about my personal background. I think that could be nice for you right now. How did I get to do this all? How did I gain my knowledge? How did I build this new tradition that I'm still rolling out? And I will put that video right here. Bye.